They say the Pacific Ocean holds no memory, that its waters swallow everything, names, faces, steal, ambition, and reveal nothing. But on one particular morning in the summer of 1942, even the ocean had to pause, because what happened above its surface in the span of a few broken hours would not just decide a battle, it would decide who owned the next century. The Imperial Japanese Navy in the spring of 1942 was not merely powerful, it was certain. Since December of the previous year, it had moved across the Pacific like a blade through paper. Pearl Harbor, Singapore, Malaya, the Philippines. Each victory had added not just territory, but something more dangerous. The unshakable belief that Japan's naval dominance was permanent, inevitable, destined. Admiral Yamamoto was the architect of this confidence, and he wanted to finish what Pearl Harbor had started. One decisive blow, he reasoned, could shatter American fighting spirit entirely, force a negotiated settlement, lock in Japan's empire before the sleeping giant could fully wake. His target, a tiny coral atoll in the Central Pacific called Midway, barely 2 miles wide, almost nothing, but strategically, everything. The plan was enormous. 11 battleships, 4 fleet carriers, 7 cruisers, dozens of destroyers, hundreds of aircraft, thousands of men, against what Yamamoto expected to be a surprised, scrambling, outnumbered American defense. But Yamamoto had made a calculation he could not afford to get wrong, and he had gotten it wrong. Somewhere in a basement in Pearl Harbor, men with tired eyes and cold coffee were doing something the Japanese considered impossible. They were reading Japan's mail. Station Hypo, the American Naval Intelligence Unit led by Commander Joseph Rochefort, had been grinding through encrypted Japanese communications for months. The code was called JN-25. It was layered, complex, deliberately obscure. But Rochefort's team found the cracks, and through those cracks, they pulled out something remarkable: the entire Japanese operational plan for the attack on Midway. The timing, the approach, the force composition. Admiral Chester Nimitz received this intelligence and did something unusual for a commander. Outgunned in nearly every category, he did not panic. He planned. 3 American carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown, were quietly positioned northeast of Midway, sitting just beyond radar range, invisible to Japanese scout planes, waiting. Japan was walking into a door it could not see. The morning of June 4th opened with Japanese aircraft hammering Midway Island. Explosions lighting up the pre-dawn darkness, hangars collapsing, fuel depots roaring with fire. It was devastating, and it was not enough. The island fought back. Planes launched. Anti-aircraft guns fired. Japanese pilots returned with a message no commander wanted to hear. A second strike is needed. Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, commanding the carrier strike force, now faced a decision that would haunt naval history forever. He ordered his reserve aircraft rearmed, torpedoes removed, bombs loaded instead. On the hangar decks of 4 carriers, weapons were unbolted, shuffled, restacked. Fuel lines ran open. Ordnance sat unguarded beside engines still warm from flight. Then came the report that turned his blood cold. American carriers were nearby. Rearm again, switch back to torpedoes. The hangar decks descended into controlled chaos. Half finished, half armed, catastrophically unprepared. Into this moment flew the men of Torpedo Squadron 8, 15 planes. No fighter cover, no illusions about the odds. They came in low, slow, and straight, and Japanese Zeros fell on them like hawks. Every plane was shot down. Every man was killed, save one, Ensign George Gay, who floated in the water and watched the rest of the battle from the surface of the sea. They had accomplished nothing by the traditional measure of war. They had hit no ships. They had sunk nothing. But they had pulled every Japanese fighter aircraft down to wave-top level and left the sky above completely undefended. At 10:22 in the morning, American dive bombers appeared above the Japanese fleet. Commander Wade McCluskey had flown beyond his fuel range to find them. His planes came down from altitude in near vertical dives, screaming through clear air, the ocean rushing up to meet them. What happened in the next 5 minutes reshaped the entire Pacific War. Akagi, Nagumo's flagship, the same carrier that had launched the Pearl Harbor attack, took a bomb through her flight deck and detonated from within. Kaga erupted in 3 separate explosions that sent fire 200 feet into the sky. Soryu burned so quickly and completely that her crew barely had time to understand what was happening. 3 carriers, 5 minutes. The armed planes, the open fuel lines, the restacked torpedoes. They turned each ship into its own destruction, not sunk from outside, but detonated from within by the very weapons meant to win the battle. A 4th carrier, Hiryu, survived long enough to strike back, damaging Yorktown badly enough that she would eventually be lost. But by evening, dive bombers had found Hiryu too. By nightfall, all 4 Japanese fleet carriers were gone. 3,000 Japanese sailors died, not in a grand final stand, not in some glorious last charge. Many of them burned on flight decks. Many slipped into water that offered no answer and no shore. The mathematics of the battle were stark. Japan lost 4 irreplaceable fleet carriers, hundreds of aircraft, and, perhaps most critically, the core of her experienced naval aviation force. These were men and machines that could not be quickly replaced. The industrial power of the United States could build new carriers in months. Japan could not. Midway did not end the war. Years of brutal island fighting still lay ahead. But after June 4, 1942, the direction of the Pacific War had permanently reversed. Japan would not advance again. The empire that had seemed invincible 6 months earlier began slowly and then steadily to pull back. The codebreakers gave Nimitz a window. The men of Torpedo 8 cleared the sky with their lives, and a handful of dive bomber pilots fell out of the sun on a blue Tuesday morning and changed the course of history in the time it takes a shadow to cross a flight deck. The Pacific holds no memory, but we do.